This is Fowl Players Radio, your podcast for arts, entertainment, and pop culture. Welcome. My name is Michael Spedden, your host. Every episode features fun, fascinating stories about people in the performing arts, actors, authors, dancers, writers, musicians, athletes, you name it. Folks who are center stage, backstage, on camera, or behind the scenes. Sit back and listen. Let's have some fun. Fowl Players Radio is a proud production of the Fowl Players Group and the official podcast of the Fowl Players of Perryville.
Hey, you guys, this is Gina Shock, drummer of the Go-Go's.
Snowman here.
Hey, Mary Jo Peel here.
Hi, this is Kathy Ladman.
Hi, this is Jay Nedry from the Road Dogs.
This is A.D. Adams, and you are tuned in to Fowl Players Radio with your host, Michael Spedden.
Hello, listeners. We at Fowl Players Radio thank you for all of your support over the past 10 seasons and nearly 300 episodes. We would like to encourage you to keep listening and spread the word. Audio versions of all episodes can be found on our main website, fowlplayersradio.com, as well as on many of the other platforms you can see here. You can find all of our Season 9 and 10 episodes, as well as some best-of episodes and shorts on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@fowlplayersradio. Be sure to hit the subscribe button to get alerts when new episodes are released. No matter what platform you choose to listen, you can help us greatly by hitting the subscribe button and giving us an honest review. You can also help us by supporting us at patreon.com/foulplayersradio or at buymeacoffee.com/foulplayerw. Your support makes it possible for us to continue to be your one-stop shop for all of your pop culture needs. Be sure to follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for new episode announcements and news and updates on all of our guests. Thank you, and enjoy this episode. Hey folks, Michael Spedden here. Welcome to Season 10, Episode 18 of Fowl Players Radio. Singer, songwriter, Dan Houtz. I reconnected with Dan this past weekend, and he was playing at the Broad Street Cafe over in Perryville. I walked around and sat down and listened to his set for a while, and we had a great time catching up, and I decided to invite him on for old time's sake. Dan and I have known each other for about 18 years, going back to the Uncle Moldy days, the very early Uncle Moldy days, performing at all the coffee houses around town. And we had a really great time catching up. He told me all about his bands and his other projects outside of his solo acoustic work and everything. His website is www.danhoutzmusic.com. All of that information you'll be able to find in the show notes. So make sure you look there, and you can find information on all of his music, his calendar, his merchandise, and everything else. So folks, stick around. We'll be right back with Dan Houtz right after these words. The Fowl Players of Perryville will be performing their murder mystery shows on the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad August 5th, September 2nd, October 7th, and 28th. For more information, please see www.wmsr.com and www.fowlplayersofperryville.com. Hope to see you there.
Hi, this is Bud Becker.
Hi, everybody. Dwight Weems from Gaz the Fun Band.
Hi, folks. This is Jay David.
Hey, this is Brian Damage from Kicks and Rhino Bucket.
Hi, this is Kim of Kim's Crypt.
Hello, my name is Gunhild Carling.
Hi, this is Paul Castiglia, and you're listening to Fowl Players Radio, the one-stop shop for all your pop culture needs.
And welcome back to another episode of Fowl Players Radio, folks. My name is Michael Spedden. And a couple nights ago, I ran into an old friend. I got a chance to reconnect with my friend Dan Houtz. Dan and I go back, God, at least 15 years, maybe even 18 that I'm thinking of. We met each other, I think, around 2005, performing at the Cup in Bel Air off of Route 22, Churchville Road, I think that is. And, you know, time flies, and here we are reunited again. We played together quite a bit over the years, and it was great to reconnect. So, Dan, how the hell are you? Welcome to Fowl Players Radio.
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yep.
I'm doing good. Super busy these days, but really excited that we could work this out and we could be here. It was great to reconnect. Great to see you out. I was playing a show out in Perryville at Broad Street Tavern, and Michael came out, and it's just really cool to catch up with you. Kind of a eerie night where I was playing, so it was really neat. We got some good chance to talk and catch up a little bit.
Yeah.
really nice place, but I think it was just kind of holiday week, a little weirdness there with other places around, some other events going on in the area, but it was really cool to catch up and really just trying to keep up with everything that's happening. Real exciting time in my life. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, I've had that experience myself too, where you're trying to get into a place for a weekend show, get a good weekend show. They're like, yeah, here you go. We have a Saturday night for you. And you're like, all right, great. A Saturday night slot. All right. Oh crap. It's Labor Day or when he's at the beach or something like that. But yeah. I mean, you sounded great. Absolutely sounded great. Both the
Thank you
the
very
cover
much.
songs and the original material, as it always did, So I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think it was around 2005, maybe 2006. We met each other at the Cup up in Bel Air.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of open mics, and I had started doing a songwriter series.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I met you guys through the open mic, and I think I had you guys out at the songwriter series. I saw you playing the songwriter series that Uncle John Sawbriar was doing at the time, I believe. And I think we just stayed in touch over the years, doing different events, doing the things down at the race, and doing the things at Boomy Temple Carnival that you guys would do.
Yeah.
When I had events, I'd have you guys out, you and Johnny doing the Uncle Moldy show.
Yes.
It's always a lot of fun, really, the events. And honestly, I always felt like the juxtaposition of the kind of alternative, maybe a little more angst, a little darker edge of what I did, but then the light almost made like you guys appear maybe slightly macabre when you look at the edge and what I was doing and how bright and how much fun you guys were having. It's kind of interesting. So I think the show made it a little bit varietal for the audience, where they got a little bit of that different flavor. And I always had a blast watching you guys play, and I always knew you guys were really like to rock out. So if I brought enough energy, you guys were there for it.
Right. The thing was with that too, being the lighter side, that's always the way it was in the bands I was in. I'd always played in electric bands before that. And the one band I was in, the last one the next to last one that I did before playing acoustic was Orange Seed Parade. And we were a very, very dark band, a lot of songs about tragedy, insane people, childhood horror. But I was always the humorous side of it. I would always come up with something funny or something that would go along with that dark side of it. And to kind of bring that to Uncle Moldy, where with Uncle Moldy, I think we were a little more observational and slapstick when it came to the kind of humor we would write. But
yeah, Chimp Attacks was yeah, we were talking about the mustache lady.
Oh yeah.
7-11 is tomorrow, by the way.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Right. This being recorded on July 10th, everybody.
But
we were talking about that. There's just something so cool about the way it really breaks down to what, if you look at the lyrics on paper, it's just a silly ass song. But then when you look at it, the way you're singing it, and the way you're actually storytelling about this woman and her life, and you're really telling this out like some of the great songwriters do, and then Johnny's singing these legitimate backing vocals that just build it even more and make it this like epic story. But it's you poking fun at this lady at 7-Eleven who has a mustache.
Yeah, well, and that was the thing too with Johnny. A lot of people would say, because he would play a lot of leads too, which you really don't always hear in acoustic music. And he would be playing his leads on an acoustic guitar like he was playing an electric guitar. And he really brought that element in of being a longtime rock and roller, adapting the acoustic style to what he had always done. And vocally, I mean, he has always had a powerhouse voice. He was always like a secondary singer in most of the bands he was in, where they would have a lead singer, but throughout the night he'd probably sing about 5 or 6 songs, and he just always had like a very high, strong, cutting voice that could cut through anything, you know.
Yeah.
Yep. And he's been a pleasure to play with all these years. Just a real pleasure to play with all these years, But it seems like you were really on the positive side of us. You were in our camp because there are a lot of people out there that weren't. And there were just a number of people. Well, the thing was that when we would play a lot of these coffee houses, there was us, and again, too, admittedly, there were nights when we were a complete mess, and
everyone has those nights.
Yeah, and other people wanted to get up there and just talk about protesting and stuff like that. That wasn't us. We weren't out to save the world. We were just out to play and have a few laughs.
Well, I think there's a place for both, but I also
sure.
I think just as much as that protest song has a place, you guys have a place.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
And it's a means of expression, and that's kind of where I always came from. I think my earlier works and my earlier writing was extremely like emotional, extremely more in that like emo kind of genre, but I didn't know what that was, because that was like, it wasn't like a thing. And I kind of found myself falling into this alternative gap, falling in with more alternative stuff as I built out into more rock styled stuff. And there's just a little bit of folk there too. There are some acts that would influence me that way. But I felt like that was a means of expression for me, just getting out and playing at an open mic or doing a showcase, or writing and recording stuff and doing those kind of things, and just creating was that way. And I don't think people get that comedy and that songs like you guys would play is the same expression. It's just a different vibe.
Right. Right.
And I think that that's really a gap. Like, people want to like an outburst isn't special just because you're being erratic. Like, I mean, you're feeling just as much as the guy over there who's feeling his song about his kids. Just because he has control of himself doesn't make him less important than this person who's flipping out, throwing things while they're playing,
Yeah.
And your song about the Dirtball Twins, that was a means of expression for you guys, and I think that that's really cool. And I actually know a lot of people who I haven't seen in years, but I can remember them being into that song. And I feel like if we were in the same room and that song came on, or let's say we all were at the same open mic, we'd all be singing that song, clapping and dancing and whatnot. And everyone yells, "Man and wife,"
Yeah. Oh, good old, Johnny would always lead that cheer. They were man and wife, they walked around. Oh my, that was gosh, it's been such a long time since I've done that. We haven't, Johnny and I haven't done Uncle Moldy since before pandemic. We've both been up to some other projects. I've been doing more acting. Johnny's been playing in his classic rock oldies band, but we may go, we have a couple of people that have asked us to come do something, warm up for somebody or warm the crowd up before somebody else plays. That was kind of what we did best anyway, really, was just kind of, we were like when you go to a wedding, the first ones out on the dance floor, hey, and but that's a lot of enjoyable things here. I was just trying to think of all the rooms that were around for open mics back then. Of course, we talked about the Cup where we first met. And then I think you and I, we played together at Huckleberry's too. Do you remember Huckleberry's over in is that Constant Friendship or near the Wegmans?
Yeah.
Yep. That was a nice place. And then it changed to something. They changed the names. It was kind of the same place.
Yeah, it was after Huckleberry's. I don't know if they sold or went out or whatever, but they sold to a family, the Rogers.
That's right, Rogers. Yeah.
So it was Rogers Coffee and Tea for a while. And there's the Rogers family. I actually went to school with John. He's only a couple of years younger than me.
Okay.
Ray was the mom. She ran the place. She was amazing. They always had great gift baskets. I remember that. I would go and buy all my gift baskets from them. I get like 3 or 4 of them each year from them, and she would like custom make these gift baskets. It was like really special stuff. And you know, not over the moon, but like just like she would personalize this for you, which was really cool. And it was kind of neat to have like a coffee shop that had like legitimate like hamburgers and stuff like that. Like
yes,
I still remember that, and
the food was good there.
Yeah,
the food was good there, and I remember I did a lot of my Christmas shopping there too, because you could get like different packages of different types of coffee. They had like all these sacks of coffee you could choose from, and that was a great place. And they were very, very supportive of us too. Very supportive.
I think they knew that we were their people. We wanted to support them, and they wanted to support us. And you know, it was kind of 2 sides of the same coin, just kind of trying to keep things happening. I think you know, the change in the area when Wegmans came in, there's just a lot of shake up in that area. It was a very hard place to keep, and then eventually it turned into a Jimmy John's, and now that same window is I don't even know what it is now.
Right. I don't think I've been in that shopping center since then.
Might even be vacant or be part of Aruba Tan now. Like it's like gone.
It could be, and that's how you can tell you're getting older, because you can drive around town and you know you can look over and see a CVS, and you say, I remember when that used to be this club, and I used to play there 20 years ago.
You got a couple of them already.
Yep. Oh yeah, and I've got even more, and you know Johnny's got even more than I do. You know, just looking around and remembering these places. There were some other ones too. Do you remember there was one? I just think it was called the Dundalk Coffee Shop or something. I think you were there with us a couple of times too. Down in Dundalk Shopping Center.
I might have played it once.
Yeah.
It's familiar.
Mm-hmm.
We'd have to like look at something from it or something
right,
like that.
Right.
I do recall that, but I think it was once, and I do think it's foggy.
Right. Let me see. There was also did you ever do the Baltimore Women's Classic? I think you did that a couple of times with Carla.
I did that like 5 years in a row.
That's right. Yeah, we were down there like 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that was a blast. That race was always a lot of fun. For the listener, at the Baltimore Women's Classic, which starts on Rash Field, goes down through was it Canton?
No, I think that was Federal Hill. Canton's on the other side of the
goes around and through Federal Hill and finishes back at Rash Field. We were working with an organization, what are they called? Baltimore AMP.
Yeah, Baltimore Art and Music Project. Carla Crisp was the president. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So AMP would, and by way of you, at least as I knew it, would bring in musicians and we would play along the course. And what was kind of neat was we would play and it was unplugged along the course, because of course, I mean, you don't want to be running and have like some big amplified band standing there in the middle of the road, you know. May as well be a Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote there, you know, fighting it out for them to run around. But you know, so you know, I always found myself stationed near the Visionary Art Museum.
Yep.
And that was a fun place to be, because there was like this weird little like stone median in the middle of the road. And I just stand out there and play, and people would always say thank you. They'd always be excited. You know, this isn't a gig where you're really playing for tips. You're more playing for the people who are there.
Yes.
You know, and what's fun to me is when the runners, and there are those people that are walking, they're like hanging out with you for a few minutes. Because not everybody runs. I mean, this is
Right.
this is a race about, women's health. And that's super important for so many reasons. But, to be there and it's a way to give to that, but it's also a way to kind of like just be part of our community and part of that whole environment. It was a really big event. I always found myself like I would really only play like 2 or 3 songs the whole time because it was the same. It was never the same people.
Right.
Because they ran the loop like once. Once they were gone, you were done. It was like go back to the front, hang out there and play for a bit.
Right.
Found myself just playing for a while, and like the last people are going by, I'm like, oh, okay.
Right. The thing that was very touching about it was that there were competitive runners in it, but then there were also people that kind of looked at it as like doing like a walkathon or something where they would just like get sponsors, and I guess they would get sponsors and they would get money for however many miles it was or whatever they walked. But my wife came down with us a couple of times and sang with us, and she was very moved by the fact that this was for all of women's health, every cancer, and then I guess it would be women's diseases, and then also anything else really. But there were a lot of women, if you remember, that had cancer and were running in the race too. Even though I mean they still had enough of their health left that they were willing to get out and run and do something like this for the benefit of others. My wife was very touched by that when she saw it. We were too. I mean, that was just and there were just some very, very nice people there. There was I remember seeing Denise Koch running by from Channel 13, and Patrice, she got married and changed her name from WBFF. She was an anchor lady there too. I forget what her last name was. It'll come to me like an hour after we finish recording, but
that's always the way.
Yeah.
I don't know that's his last name, but I think I know who you're talking about.
Yep.
For me, it was a lot about the survivors. They were well marked, and they were proud, and it was celebrating them on top of supporting those who were in a fight. And I think what you're saying about the folks who were ill, who were still running, that speaks to the strength of our community.
It does. It does.
And I think it's an unsung thing about this community. There's ladies out there, running and doing that and not giving up.
That's right. That's right. And then now another benefit that we did, and I think you put this together, was at Du Burns Arena. I think you had you booked Johnny and I to come out and play.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, that was going all night.
That wasn't my booking. I invited you guys because I got an invite.
Okay, right.
A friend of mine at the time was doing this thing with Relay for Life.
That's what it was, Relay for Life, yeah.
And they had the Du Burns Arena, and they had no one playing music there. And it was all night.
Yep.
I was like, really? They're like, yeah, we have a sound system and everything. I'm like, really? And they had these huge stacked speakers set up. Man, that was crazy. We can all say we played the Du Burns Arena at 2:00 in the morning while people walked in a circle.
I remember that because I think didn't we have that same day? Didn't we play? I think we did a Baltimore Amp event in the park, and then we went down afterwards, didn't we? Or didn't we?
We might have, yeah. I mean, it was, those were crazy times. That was. You thought I was going to say pre-COVID, but no, that was pre-child. So pre-child did a lot of crazy shit like that. And just a lot of like, sure, we'll play from 7 to 10 at this coffee house, and then we'll go to the Du Burns Arena and play from midnight to 5 a.m. Why not?
Right.
You need someone to read you guys the commercials?
Mm-hmm.
We'll do an infomercial between songs. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good night there.
That was a lot of fun.
Yep. And you had remembered you brought up the Boomy Temple earlier, and I think that we had gotten booked there for maybe 10 or 11 years. And I think we only got to play at maybe 6 of them because it seemed like, these skies would always just completely open up. And whenever it came time to play, it would be sunny until the music had to start. And even then, they would put a tent over the stage in later years, but it still got soaked under the tent and everything. And my God, you get electrocuted if you even went up there. But they were always nice to us too. They were always great to play at. And
I have a story about that.
Okay.
The Boomy Temple Carnival I played at. The first couple of years I was with my wife, Hillary.
Mm-hmm.
When she was at that, we won 3 goldfish. The last of those goldfish passed on last year.
Wow.
12 years old.
That's got to be a record for a gold, especially the caliber of goldfish they sell at those things. Or did you win it or buy it? Or,
we won it.
No kidding.
Just throw the rings and they hit the bottles.
Wow.
Yeah. She can throw some rings.
Mm-hmm. I guess she can, and those are some pretty hardy goldfish. Then I mean, I can see a goldfish maybe living a year or 2 at the most, but 12 years, wow. Yeah,
there was 3 of them, and to put reference on how long ago it was, we named them Jim, Pam, and Dwight from the Office.
Wow. Jeez.
Jim, he's I don't think he actually was dead, but he was like ill and he was too big for the tank. Like he was like this long.
Jeez. Wow.
Yeah, he was a big ass goldfish as far as goldfish go. He was big. I took him and let him go in a pond, but I mean, he was a little ill. So I don't know if he made it or not, but
jeez, a whiz. Wow,
but
that's something else right there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Boomy Temple, folks.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Did you ever let me see, there were some other open mics around too. There was a Lutheran church over like in the Sedonia area. And it was run by.
Are you talking about the Universalist Unitarian Church?
No, this was a Lutheran church because it was on Marluth Avenue, which was shortened for Martin Luther. It was right off of Bel Air Road, not far off of Kenwood Avenue. They used to have open mics there too.
Was it like the basement of a church down like Perry Hall?
No, but I remember that one too.
I walked in there and I had an offensive sticker on my guitar case. I forget what it was. I really do. They were done with me when I walked in the door. And I was like, oh. And the guy just looked at me and I honestly forget what it was. I never really had many stickers on my guitar case either. But I think it was like a good friend of mine had something that was silly and it was on this sticker and I was like, oh, right. I put that sticker on my guitar case. Well, here we are. I played, but yeah.
We had that kind of issue too. We got booked to play at the state fair. Oh, like in 16 and 17, or maybe 17 and 18. And we got booked to play there, and the person who booked us was the sound man there, and he had like the big main stage where like Alice Cooper or whoever the main headliner was going to be, but then he had a couple of smaller stages around, and he booked us. And for some reason, the person who was like in charge of it had heard something about us being like completely filthy dirty, and we're not. I mean, we may slip into a little bit of hygiene or bathroom humor once in a while, but never dirty. We never cussed or anything like that.
You got
And
headlight face.
yeah, exactly. And there was I think the worst thing we said was phone sex in that one song. And
Yeah.
there was a guy who, when we were playing, he was an older fellow, and he stood like 2 feet in front of the stage. And every once in a while, I'd hear him I see him like crane his neck over and like hold his hand around his ear to try to catch everything we were saying. And I said, that must be the guy. That must be the guy. And he was like looking at us the whole time, like he was just waiting for us to do something wrong. And we didn't. We finished the set and everything went fine. But yeah, I was just, this isn't exactly like the PMRC or anything from the 80s with Frank Zappa and Twisted Sister and all them.
Yeah.
Yep. So let me see another one. The Red House. I know you did the Red House with us a few times, at least.
Yeah.
Yep. And sadly, we just lost John Harris, the owner. He had just passed. Yeah, he passed away around Christmas time. I think it may have been right around Christmas time or early January, and they just had a celebration of life for him about a month ago. But talk about a great open mic.
Yeah. Just always a lot of fun. A lot of a lot of energy.
Yep. I just found on my hard drive, God, probably about a couple hundred pictures from that place that I sent over to his kids, because a couple of his kids worked there at the time too, and remembered a lot of the bands and everything. And then there was a couple of them I shared, like I'm friends with Ray from Bond and Bentley, if you remember those guys, and then of course Meg and Tony. And I put a bunch of these pictures up on Facebook, like some memories of playing there, and everybody got a big kick out of that. But you were talking, you mentioned something the other night when we were talking, and one of the stories I remember from doing open mic at the Red House was, anybody could come in and do anything. And these guys came in one night with a didgeridoo. And we were getting paid by the bar. I think it was 10% of the bar. And we had a packed house and people were drinking and having a good time. This guy gets up there and starts playing that damn didgeridoo. Parted that place like the Red Sea. I mean, it was just like this mass exodus of people. And we were left with maybe 2 or 3 people in the place. And I was ready to break that thing off and shove it up his ass. I mean, you don't want to.
Tell me how you really feel.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just sitting there watching this guy, and he's doing this, and people are just like, I can see people looking at each other saying, let's get out of here. And even people that were lined up to play left, which left Johnny and I in a really tight spot that night,
Yeah. Put you in that spot where it's like, oh, I guess I'm playing the rest of the
night. I know. But it reminded me of that. You're probably too young to remember, but they had like a kids version of National Geographic out in the 70s, and they used to give them to us in school. And in these magazines, they had like a real floppy record that you could take and put home on your turntable. And it was recordings of humpback whales underwater with the singing, and like that singing that they do underwater. That's what that damn didgeridoo sounded like. And I tell you, wow. Man, yeah, that's what it reminded me of, those humpback whales singing and everything, So I had seen, you had posted on Facebook that you've been playing out of town a bit.
Yeah, I have been. One thing for me, my approach, so I guess, I do a lot of different things. So my approach, I'm not just trying to do just playing out just to play and just to make money. I'm also a songwriter. I have a band. We're called Think Again. I'm also writing, songs that I play myself. You may see some of those released in the near future. Kind of figuring out the pattern for how these releases will go, since I have the band and the band's working on writing and recording as well. But part of it, I like to kind of look at it more as a regional approach, where I'd rather play in different areas and spread out my reach rather than just keep playing in the same town over and over.
Yeah, it's like a treadmill.
Yeah, I also think it's more fair to the businesses I work with if I'm not playing, for instance, if I'm not playing in Perryville on Friday and then playing in, I don't know, Port Deposit on Saturday, So I did actually play back-to-back days. I played in Perryville on Saturday night, but then I played in New Freedom, Pennsylvania on Sunday.
Oh.
Completely different areas, completely different experiences too. But that's the deal, and for me, I like to find these little slices of home in these places, and honestly, I like to find places I like to go, and I like to kind of work a rotation so I can go back and kind of build, if I can build some following in each of these places. Doing these cover shows has helped me to open doors and helped me to bring probably the most organic reach I've ever had for my songwriting and stuff online. Like, I see my streaming numbers ticking up, and it's not astronomical. I mean, I'm not famous, or I'm not getting at that, but realistically, seeing people that actually want to hear my music because they've heard me sing enough of music they know that it generates enough of their interest. So that is kind of the regional approach that I have. I've worked around, my roots in Harford County, having regular shows at Jayville Grill, regular open mic hosting at Vagabond Sandwich Company in Bel Air. Good friend of mine named Jeff Gardner, drummer, played some bands I played with growing up. We weren't in bands together, but we shared a lot of stages in other bands we were in. Got me hooked up with a place called Gina's Cantina down in Millersville, which is near Annapolis. Really like that place. It's real kind of chill spot. It's nice. Sometimes I feel like it's a lot stressful when you play in like cities. So if I booked like downtown Annapolis, it's like people start getting like, well, where am I going to park? How do I get there? Yada yada. Versus this place it's kind of set back. It's got plenty of places to sit. There's a nice parking lot. There's no nothing. They actually got good food, Mexican food. If you like tacos and stuff like that, it's pretty sweet. The big one I'm sure we're going to get into is New York. Got very fortunate. My sister-in-law, some friends up there, made a friend who owns a place up there. It's a place I play up there called Brady's on 2nd Avenue in Manhattan. Love playing up there. It's probably among my favorite gigs I've ever played. Just the people there really want to hear music, and it's kind of special.
They do. The one thing that I'll add, I mean, just based on my experience too, and I'm agreeing with you, you find that when you play more diverse areas, different things work and different things go over in different areas.
Absolutely.
It's like night and day between Baltimore, New York, and DC, for example. People are a lot more, I found that in New York and DC, people were a lot more appreciative of something original as compared to the regular cover songs, the cover song bands that you would get in Baltimore. Are you finding that too?
To a degree. A lot of what I'm doing right now, when I play as Dan Houtz and I do like the solo show, I'm like almost 90-10 or 80-20 covers. And my favorite thing is when someone is into the show and they ask me to play originals. So I think sometimes people don't realize how many of the performers they know are songwriters. When we are hired and paid to play covers, that's the job. this is a passion, but this is a job sometimes. But realistically, you know, I want you to enjoy what I'm playing. If you're going to enjoy it more, if I play songs you know, okay. One thing that's unique about my show in my cover sets, I'm a very basic player. Like, you know, like I know my chords. I know how to play a song. Don't get me wrong, and I know how to perform. But I take those songs that you know, and I run them through like a Dan Houtz filter. And you heard me play several songs the other night you never would have believed I would play, probably, having known me as long as you have.
Yes, yep.
You know, when you hear me play something like when I play Rolling in the Deep by Adele, it doesn't sound like Adele.
Nope.
It sounds like me. And that's kind of the point. And the more I do that, and the more I give people that melody and that rhythm for songs they know, but I give them my identity within it, I am songwriting. That is original.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's really how I've crossed over into the cover space more than not. Even more so when I get to share my own material, which I only play a few a night of those, unless I'm with family and friends. If I have a lot of family and friends out, sometimes they request my songs by name and I will play them. I typically don't play like a whole set of covers during those shows unless it's like a special kind of thing where there's a ton of people that's just asking for that. And I'll usually try to just rotate them in throughout. But again, those are sparse. That doesn't happen too often where there's that many, because when people are making requests, often they're requesting covers.
Yeah. How about the full band? You have a full band as well. Think Again, is that correct? Yep.
Yeah. Think Again.
Who are you playing with?
So Think Again is kind of a culmination of a lot of different things. Over the years, I started out kind of doing this acoustic thing. I had played in electric hard rock bands. I was basically, you know, I was guy with microphone, you know, the front of the stage, stamping around, stomping around, singing, yada yada, not screaming but singing. And you know, bands would split, new bands would form, and there's kind of a core of people I've worked with. One person I was very close with throughout several different bands was my drummer, Fred Wood. When I started doing the think vocally thing, I started doing having Fred come out playing hand drum with it. So he would have like a cajon, or he'd have a djembe, and he'd play that. And after we did that, Fred and I started working with a guitar player from another band we were friends with, a guy named Jared. And we kind of turned this into a trio, and I started calling it Think Again. Instead of Think Vocally, it was just Think Again, and it was a band. It was like we were going to start really building out the songs more, work on some production elements, and see if we'd expand it any further. And we went to this kind of like acoustic trio kind of place. After that kind of fizzled, the guitar player, he ended up with work and family stuff. He like moved away. It was very, I don't know, really spaced. It was weird, but things happen, I guess. So we did an EP that way. Then we started working on what the next phase would be. And at that time, Fred and I were also playing in a rock band called Ashes to Embers. And Ashes to Embers pretty much had like broken up after about 5.5, 6 years. Band had just, we'd done most of the things that a local band was going to do. I think we got to that point, and I don't think we were really fighting, but there were just things going on in the band, and little incidents here and there. But it just got to the point where the band wasn't going on tour, and that was the next stage. You know, when you've played all the clubs and you've sold CDs and you've sold shirts and you've been around and you've played every gig that you were probably going to get without having to really blow up or do something crazy promotionally, without pouring just tons and tons of money in it to keep it rolling. You know, the band, everyone just kind of points to each other like, yeah, well, we should have done this, or we should have done that, or it's your fault. And, you know, Eventually the band just kind of falls apart. So at that time, Dave Bowen, who was actually the best man at my wedding, good friend of mine, great bass player, he actually started playing with me and Fred. So me and Fred were doing this to kind of think again as like a duo, working off the material we had. And then we had like the power trio think again, where it was me, Fred, and now Dave. And Dave's like this. He's a guitar player, right? That deaf down to play bass because he liked the music we had in Ashes to Embers, and he wanted to be in a band more than he wanted to play guitar.
Right.
I bet I could find a band if I'm playing bass, and he did. And it really worked out. You know, we all became, you know, great friends with him as well. And he was I look at those records that we did, and there's a few of them, and his bass parts are 100%. They're awesome. For someone to come in learning an instrument and to take that on. And, you know, I mean, and it's, you know, and some of it's like busy stuff too, like, you know, a lot of neat stuff. And the engineers we worked with when we did the records, did the recordings, they weren't people who would just sleep on the bass line, you know, so they weren't letting him off the hook.
Right.
You know, Dave was a technical player on guitar, so, you know, picking up a bass, I guess it's just wider calluses, right?
Where did you record it?
We did most of our recording at Secret Sound with John
sure.
Yeah, John was always a blast to work with.
Oh, he's great. He's absolutely great.
Yeah, he's wonderful. I think of there's so many great stories about being there. I can't even just think of just one, but there's just so many neat things that came out of those sessions. Like I think about some of those, like John's one of those, it would just be one of those nights, like we'd have this big idea and it's like, oh, cool. We just wrote a 12-bar long piano sonata for the end of this song. We don't have a keyboard player. But I look at those parts in the songs and I'll tell you what, if we trigger them live, sounded awesome. We did it a few times. But anyway, so at that point, we were the power trio think again. It was me, Dave, and Fred. And the other thing that was happening at that time, my showcase was like buzzing. Started doing it at Vagabond. That was right after Vagabond opened. It's kind of lined up. So I had the showcase going, and it was Trio Think Again was happening, and that was me, Dave, and Fred. We would pretty much play at most of the showcases, and that showcase raises money for Band Together of Harford County, which is a charity I work with that helps provide instruments to kids of need in the Harford County public schools.
Right.
And we were doing that almost monthly. And, you know, that was really the shows Think Again played. We would just do that. And once in a while, we'd pick up something in the city that was, you know, like original, like club gigs. But usually our energy was based on the showcase because it was like it was a little work. You know, I mean, we were doing promotion. We were booking other acts to come in. I'd run sound on it and the band could play. And during that, you know, I started to cultivate more of my singer-songwriter material to be more full band type of stuff, which was different. You know, one of our friends that was also in Ashes to Embers with us, guitar player, Mike Faulkner, who he was from Ashes to Embers as well. He actually asked me about, you know, coming in. And, you know, Mike and I had worked together in many bands over the years. We were in a band called Erasing All. We were in another band called 90-Second Life Story. We were in Ashes to Embers together. There were a couple iterations of one or two bands. You know, overall, the question was, you know, Mike's a real technical, lead-driven type of guitar player, and to come into a project like this, you know, we had to make sure that we could really work this out. And the one thing that I knew I could count on is we have always had this chemistry where, you know, Mike is like a Swiss Army guitar player. He can play almost anything if he wants to. And I think he either saw something in this or he wanted to be involved with Fred and I and Dave. And he just found like this was kind of where the groove that he would fit in. And I don't know if it was something about some of the songs we had, or it was just an opportunity to come in and, but I was grateful that he wanted to come in. So, we brought him in and we started doing that. And we were then 4-piece, like the more powerhouse version of Think Again. And shortly after that, we started booking club gigs and we started playing kind of around regularly. Then Dave had to bow out. He had a couple kids. Dude was just super busy. Work was super busy. He ended up moving out to like North Hartford, so he was a little further away.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think if I asked him tomorrow, he could sub for a gig. He's that kind of guy. Like,
Sure, yeah.
When Dave had to kind of cut back, because he pretty much needed to just needed to take a break. He'd been in bands with us for 7-8 years. I think it was just, he also wanted, if he was going to do a band, he wanted to do something louder than what Think Again was. He was committed to what we were doing, but I think the notion of it was that it was easy because it was just songwriter stuff. And I think when we started playing clubs and doing all that, getting that kind of energy, I think it was more than maybe he expected it to be. So he stepped back, and a good friend of ours named Joe Ruggiero, who's that's the lineup now, came in on bass. Joe is very similar to Dave. He's a really talented guitar player, and he is a bass player as well. He started playing bass. Actually, one of the reasons he picked up a bass that he told me was he wanted to do a sub for Dave to play a show with Ashes to Embers. One of our last shows we played at the Record Theater like the end of the year before it closed. This big it was an annual Christmas show they did with Cinder Road and a couple other bands. And Joe stepped in and played with us that night, which is pretty cool because Dave couldn't be there. I think he had like a big family thing. He couldn't rework, and the band, we knew this was the last time we were ever going to get to play the Wrecker, which was like our home venue for that band.
That's a great place. That's a great room.
And so we did that, and it was kind of interesting when the spot came up and Dave had to kind of bow out of Think Again. Joe was really easy to go to for that. And the other thing about Joe is he's a pretty good backing vocalist too. So I started writing stuff in for him like that. And, the rest has kind of just been history. The band has released a few EPs in the first trio format, 2 guitars and a drum. We did a EP called Brainchild. Then in the full format as an acoustic lineup. So Mike was playing acoustic guitar as a second guitar. Dave was electric bass. And then that switched to Joe during the writing of this record. And then Fred was still on hand drum. We did an EP called Every Which Way. And then we turned up and went electric. Mike started playing electric guitar. Joe was still electric bass. Fred started playing a drum kit. And I'm still on acoustic guitar. We released a full EP called Keep Hope Alive. And that is the latest record we have to date. We have a couple singles out since then that are kind of the full band sound, like this electric band sound. A lot of those things are on Spotify. If you look at thinkagainband.com, you can see tunes. There's a music video we shot inside Vagabond Sandwich Company for a song called Revive.
Oh, that's great.
Very close with Ben, having done all the music I've done there over the years. And if you want to come in here on a Sunday and move all the tables, you can, and it's kind of a neat thing because I've always loved Vagabond. It's my that's my musical home. Consider it.
That's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. They let you do that, and they're so supportive of the scene and the fact that you have this open mic, and the fact that they're that you're also using that open mic for something good to help those schools get instruments for kids. I mean, that's just sounds great all around, really.
Yeah.
Now, what is you had mentioned you've been playing Wrecker's a great room. That's I've been there a couple of times, and I just got it. That's a really nice room. I remember when it was actually a theater, because I used to go see Pink Floyd The Wall there at midnight back in the 80s. And that was it was a great theater back then. It was an old school one. But what are some of the other clubs that you've been doing?
So there's a whole bunch of clubs around. In my time, the bigger clubs that I've played are probably like back when Bourbon Street was open. That was kind of big. It was on Guilford Avenue.
Yeah.
Now called 316. It's like an event space. But the building was partially condemned, I believe. I'm not really sure how that's working. I don't know. Baltimore Soundstage,
Sure.
big one for us. And several bands. Auto Bar, Metro Gallery, had blanking on a really big one. Obviously, some of our earlier bands played at Fletcher's a lot.
Sure, Fells
Love
Point.
playing at
Yep.
Fletcher's. Obviously, Record Theater, as I said. You know, you look at a place like Max. You remember Max was out in Essex?
Yes,
a lot of
Max.
bands played there.
Sure.
Yeah. What did they change the name to before it closed? Do you remember that?
No.
What they changed the name?
Max. Now, Max was on May
It's now
7th.
Dollar General on Eastern Avenue.
Oh, okay. That's a shame, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that place was wild. I mean, yeah. But that's kind of how it goes, right? I know I'm blanking on one or two of them. Played the Hard Rock once. That was kind of cool. That's the majority of the rooms.
Yeah.
I mean, really, you kind of rotate around those rooms. Sonar's another one. Played there a few times, like that room. Fishhead Cantina is another one.
Oh, sure, Fishhead. Yeah.
Played a small club on Bel Air Road several times called the Mojo Room. Back when. Used to be Cafe Tattoo before that.
Oh God, jeez, God. I remember that.
Takes you back, right?
Yeah, God, that was like
doing this for a minute too.
gosh, I played there. I think maybe in '87. Cafe Tattoo. Yeah.
That was two.
Yeah, that was a while ago. That was a few minutes ago. That's great. It's that people, these clubs are still out there, and there is they're decent sized rooms too.
Yeah. Another good one is Angel's Rock Bar. That's another one that we've played recently. But once you get up the steps, it's an awesome club.
Oh yeah, where is that?
That's right in the heart of Power Plant.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Power Plant Live. It's right up that really big staircase.
Oh, sure.
But they have this cool light wall behind it. So
that's a big white wall behind the stage.
Light wall.
Oh, light wall.
Yeah, like a dot matrix light wall. So
it's wow.
Lights all behind you while you're playing.
Oh, that's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. Yeah, that's great. So there are some decent places out there and everything.
There are, if you're involved in a good group or a good scene or a good, I feel like there's a lot of like flickiness to this, but if you're involved in a solid promotional group, that there's some great opportunities that can come along with that.
Oh, absolutely.
We worked with Baltimore Sound Management when we were in like Ashes to Embers. We worked with them a lot. I've worked with Transcendent Events, Kevin Hawk's group, a lot over the years. Kevin has, really offered me a lot of great shows and opportunities, or his team has as well. In Ashes to Embers at the end, in a band I was in called Through the Wake for a bit, and then in Think Again as well. Another one is the 8x10.
That's been around forever too. I did that
there too. I'm glad I remembered those two. That was what it was Angel's Rock Bar and 8x10. I forgot. There's a lot of places, man. It's wild. And when you've been doing this And right now I'm not really in that mode. Like I used to be thinking like, if we want to book a gig on XYZ weekend, which club will we play? And it's really a process of elimination at some point, because things get booked, or genre wise, what's happening where.
Sure.
I haven't been in that grind, because Think Again is taking a light schedule. We're playing once every few months. And our next show is August 12th. We're playing at Slate Farm Brewery, and we're playing we're doing like a 50-50 gig.
Oh yeah.
So we're kind of going to experiment with that. That's something we've looked at for sustainability of the band, to try to kind of allow the band to play out. And one of the things about Think Again is we have a big catalog. We have like 2.5 albums of material, when you've got that and people come out that want to hear your songs.
Right.
And I mean, and when you have more than that handful of songs you have when you first come out, and people actually have like, oh yeah, are you going to play anything off of the second CD? Like, oh yeah, no, we don't have time for that.
Right.
A 40-minute set, and we were going to play you 2 songs from the last CD, and then 2 older songs, and then we were going to throw in a cover. That's if sound all works out, there's no technical glitches. And that's not I don't mean that as a dig. I mean, it's just that's club shows. That's how it works. The great part of that is, you have a chance to co-promote with other bands. You have a chance to meet fans of other bands. You have a chance to network. Like, I know I've met other bands and made good friends, like Joe, who plays in Think Again, is one of those people I met playing shows. Actually, that's a really funny story. I don't know if that's a funny story I should tell though. Yeah, I met Joe at Max in Essex. And he was outside smoking a cigarette. Some guy, I don't know if this guy had PTSD or if this guy was on mushrooms or something, went outside and like tried to attack him. And they stretchered this guy away. After the security staff took care of him.
Yep.
And that was how I met Joe.
Wow. It's amazing how you meet people sometimes, I could share very similar experiences of people that I've met when I was playing music years ago. And you never forget those things. Yeah,
I'll never forget that.
Yeah. Yep. And it's just it's great. I mean, it really seems like you're doing a lot of different great things out here. So what I'd like to do now is the shameless plug portion of the evening, where you can shamelessly plug anything you'd like to shamelessly plug, with all shamelessness included, no shamelessness spared. So go for it.
You said shamelessness like a lot.
I did. That's very shameless of me. I did that shamelessly as well.
Okay. Yeah, if you would like to check out my music, you can see me at danhoutzmusic.com. On that website, you will be able to access a calendar for my live shows. You can see a Spotify for my band Think Again. If you would like to see more about Think Again, go to thinkagainband.com. On my danhoutz.com website, there's also a special SoundCloud account that shows all the different bands that I've been in. I have like a little rotational playlist of different bands. That's Ashes to Embers, Think Again, Through the Wake, and solo material that I've recorded. It's a unique way to kind of check out my body of work. I would ask you to also please check into Band Together of Harford County. This is an organization that provides instruments to kids of need in our area. This is not a bunch of private organizations. This is literally teachers from our Harford County public schools giving their time and energy to help organize a large catalog of instruments that is lent out to the students. And all the cost is fronted by the organization through donations and grants and other things. And it's a very hardworking group that really cares about giving the kids the opportunity to make music. And it's all about inclusion, and it's all about just building the sound of tomorrow. If you have anything you want to reach out to me about as far as bookings, as far as song requests, I do learn songs specifically for shows and for people. Email me. It's on my site. Please go to danhoutzmusic.com and let's connect.
Great. And Bands Together was at .org, did you say?
Yes.
.org.
bandstogethermd.org.
bandstogethermd.org. All of these links, folks, are going to be in the show notes as well. So you can click on all these different things and get to all these things that Dan had mentioned, including his calendar, his music, bandstogethermaryland.org. All of these things are going to be on there, folks. So, well, Dan, excellent catching up with you there, bud. You know, I'm really glad that we were able to do this and catch up a bit the other night, reminisce for a while. It's been a lot of fun and it's been a long time. So
yeah,
great to have
I'm
you.
really glad we got to do this.
So folks, make sure that you go to Dan's website, danhoutzmusic.com, come see a show, get some music. Do you have any other merch or anything like that?
I do have t-shirts. If you go to my website, there's a store. There are Dan Houtz music t-shirts that feature my little skeleton Dan guy on them. Yeah, him.
It's a hologram too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I when I had that made, full disclosure, I did not draw that. I had that made. I had a guy design that. And a funny story about that. I won't go on long. I know we're running low on time.
Go ahead.
I sent this to this guy. I said, look, I want this guy to be a skeleton, but I want him to look like he's having fun. I want him to look like he's rocking out. I said, and for me, here's my aesthetic. And I said, oh yeah, I also want DH, my initials, in a headstock. And he sent this back to me and I was like, oh my God. I didn't even think about it being me. Like I thought about it just being a skeleton. Like I thought like maybe like a skeleton with a mohawk just rocking out or something. And I brought up like lightning bolts or something. And I was like, I don't know, maybe something like that. But I thought maybe that would be too much. So he made this glowing collarbone in there, and it was brilliant.
Yeah, it is.
The only comment I had was I asked him to color the eyes because it was black when I got them. The eyes were blacked out. It looked more dead than I wanted. So my eyes are green, so his eyes are green.
Oh, great.
It's really funny. The picture. There's a picture on my socials of me very similar to that, wearing like a gray button-down shirt. And he really copied the aesthetic of that. It was brilliant. The artist I hired to do that, someone I found online, did a really good job of it. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, I put those on t-shirts. They're available through a site called Printful. It's all linked to a big cartel store that I have. If you purchase them on there, they ship them, they make them and ship them directly to you. And I get whatever profit there is. I think it's like a couple bucks or something, but really would be great to have awareness out there for that because, that's cool. Another thing I will plug now, I will be releasing a handful of solo songs in the near future. I'm kind of in pre-production on that now. But yeah, if you do look on my website as well, on that store, there are albums available. Think Again has records. Keep Hope Alive is the most current one. I would definitely recommend that. As far as the work of songwriting and the things that I've done as a musician, that's probably, I would say, my greatest achievement, that release. I would think the next things are just going to keep improving as they do. But that one I really think is special of the group.
Wonderful. Well, Dan, thank you again for being with us tonight. We really, it was great to catch up with you. And I was glad I just happened to be scrolling through Facebook the other night and saw that you were right around the corner from me. So,
yeah. I mean, it was great to catch up, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. So folks, danhoutzmusic.com and all the other links and everything will be in the show notes. So thanks again, Dan. And
thank you.
Thank you all for listening. You've been listening to Fowl Players Radio, and we will see you next time. And folks, thank you for tuning in tonight to our episode with Dan Houtz. It was great to catch up with Dan again. You know, he and I go way back, God, almost 20 years now, just about 18 years. So remember that Dan's music and his schedule and everything can be found in the show notes, www.danhoutzmusic.com. And remember, bandstogethermaryland.org, an organization that Dan supports through his music at Vagabond Sandwich Shop to help buy musical instruments for students in school in the Harford County area. So that'll be it for tonight on Fowl Players Radio. Remember, look for us, our website, www.fowlplayersradio.com, our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@fowlplayersradio. And remember, wherever you watch or listen, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and give us a fair review. And we will see you next time. I'm Michael Spedden.
This is Just Bill.
This is Rat Bastardson.
And this is Joe Poodle from Red Die Number 9, and you are listening to Fowl Players Radio.